Once upon a time, in a magnificent kingdom, there lived an emperor. He was rich beyond imagination, with golden palaces that sparkled under the sun. The emperor's wealth was unmatched. Every corner of his palace shimmered with treasures, yet his wisdom in ruling was questionable, often forgotten. He cared for nothing but his clothes. Each morning, he would stand before an array of mirrors, admiring himself for hours. The fabrics he chose were exquisite: silk that glowed, velvet that shimmered, and gold threads that caught every glimmer of light. Every day, he would don a new outfit, sometimes changing them more than once. Courtiers watched in awe and a bit of disbelief as he paraded through the palace halls. The citizens outside whispered among themselves, shaking their heads. Their ruler was selfish, wasteful, and utterly indifferent to the needs of his people. They noticed the taxes rising, the crops suffering, and the poor struggling, yet the emperor never seemed to notice, lost in his fascination with appearance. Despite the grandeur surrounding him, the emperor's vanity overshadowed any sense of responsibility. Mirrors were his constant companions, reflecting his glory. Every hall echoed with the sound of silks brushing the marble floors, yet he remained blind to the cries and whispers of his own people. In the city, people spoke in hushed tones, mocking his obsession with clothing, yet fearing confrontation. Their ruler seemed imprisoned in a world of fabrics, threads, and vanity. No advisor or minister could convince him that ruling wisely was more important than wearing splendid robes. His obsession was complete. One fine morning, two clever swindlers arrived at the kingdom. They carried empty bags and mysterious smiles, claiming to possess magical skills unlike any other. They boasted that they could weave cloth so exquisite, so delicate, that only the wise could see it, while the foolish would see nothing at all. The emperor's eyes sparkled with curiosity, a mixture of pride and wonder. A fabric visible only to the intelligent? How marvelous! He exclaimed aloud, imagining himself adorned in it. He envisioned the admiration from foreign dignitaries, the envy of other rulers, and the glory of being seen as the wisest of all emperors. Word spread quickly through the palace and across the city. Courtiers whispered nervously, fearful of appearing foolish or unworthy in front of their ruler. The swindlers demanded the finest silk, threads of gold, and precious needles to begin their extraordinary weaving. The emperor, eager to see the wonder, provided everything. Little did he know, the so-called magical fabric did not exist. The tricksters hid the materials in their bags and pretended to work, moving empty looms as if weaving tirelessly. Rumors of this invisible cloth quickly stirred fear among the ministers. None dared admit they could not see it, for fear of being labeled dull or incompetent. Each day, the emperor imagined wearing this extraordinary garment, thinking it could reveal the cleverness of his court and his own unrivaled wisdom. With each passing day, the anticipation grew. The palace buzzed with excitement and anxious curiosity as everyone wondered what this miraculous cloth might look like. The swindlers continued their charade, laughing quietly among themselves while pretending to measure, cut, and sew threads that weren't there. Finally, the emperor decided to send his most trusted minister to inspect the progress. The minister, a dignified man with a serious demeanor, entered the workshop with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Inside, the room was filled with empty looms, silent except for the occasional movement of the swindlers' hands as they mimicked weaving with invisible threads. The minister looked around, his eyes scanning every corner, trying to discern the pattern, the color, the texture of something that wasn't there. To his horror, he saw absolutely nothing. Panic surged through him. How could he admit that he could not see the magical fabric? He imagined the whispers that would follow, the questions about his intelligence, his suitability for his position, and the doubt it would cast on his judgment. Fearing humiliation and eager to protect his reputation, he cautiously praised the non-existent cloth. Oh, what a splendid pattern! Truly marvelous, delicate beyond words. The swindlers nodded solemnly, smiling faintly at his praise, inwardly chuckling at how easily they had deceived him. The minister left, feeling both relieved and foolish. Next, 2 other high-ranking officials were sent to inspect the progress. Each entered the workshop with a sense of duty, pride, and a hint of apprehension. Each official entered cautiously, their eyes straining to see the magical threads. None could detect anything, yet all feared being deemed foolish. They praised the invisible cloth, commenting on its splendid colors and exquisite patterns, though their hearts raced with embarrassment. The swindlers bowed and smiled, encouraging their compliments, while secretly relishing in the emperor's growing anticipation. Days passed as the emperor eagerly awaited his new clothes. Each morning he imagined himself adorned in brilliance, admired by all around him. The palace buzzed with excitement. Even the servants whispered nervously, not wanting to appear foolish if they couldn't see the magic fabric. Finally, the day arrived when the swindlers claimed the emperor's clothes were ready. The emperor's heart raced with delight and anticipation. The swindlers set up a grand ceremony in the palace hall, where everyone would witness the unveiling of the remarkable attire. The emperor stepped forward, feeling a mixture of pride, anxiety, and excitement. His courtiers surrounded him, eager to see the magical garments. The swindlers dressed the emperor, moving invisible robes over his shoulders, adjusting folds, and arranging imaginary patterns with careful precision. The emperor looked down at himself, seeing nothing. A wave of doubt crossed his mind, but pride kept him silent. He reminded himself that only the wise could see the clothes, so perhaps he simply possessed the insight to perceive their magnificence. The courtiers nodded enthusiastically, praising the invisible fabric. Their fear of appearing foolish overwhelmed their honesty. Finally, it was time for the emperor to appear before the public. The streets were lined with citizens eagerly waiting to witness the splendor. As the emperor paraded through the city, everyone stared. He appeared to be wearing nothing at all, yet fear kept them from speaking. "Look at the magnificent fabric. Only the wise can see it," murmured the citizens to each other, uncertain but too afraid to contradict tradition. The emperor held his head high, imagining the admiration and awe he would inspire. The streets echoed with hushed whispers of wonder. A small child, innocent and honest, finally broke the spell. "But he isn't wearing anything at all," the child exclaimed loudly. A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. The emperor's face turned red with embarrassment as he realized the truth of his foolish pride. The swindlers quietly slipped away, satisfied with their deception. The emperor hurried back to the palace, humbled and ashamed. From that day on, he vowed to pay attention to the needs of his people and not be blinded by vanity and pride. He learned that wisdom and honesty were more valuable than any garments, and that true respect came from deeds, not appearances. The citizens noticed the change in their ruler. His attentiveness and humility began to heal the rift between the palace and the city. Gradually, the emperor became a wise and beloved leader, remembered not for his clothes, but for his courage to change and learn from mistakes. The swindler's tale remained a story of caution, reminding everyone of the dangers of vanity and the power of honesty. In every corner of the kingdom, children laughed as they retold the story, and adults smiled, remembering the lesson hidden within the folly. Even in the grandest halls, mirrors were no longer used to measure vanity, but to reflect self-awareness and humility. The palace gardens bloomed with life and laughter, a testament to the emperor's new understanding and the happiness of his people. Every morning, the emperor dressed simply, grateful for the clothes he had, yet remembering the lesson of the invisible fabric. The kingdom prospered, not because of wealth or glittering robes, but because of wisdom, honesty, and care for one another. And so, the story of the emperor and his invisible clothes was told for generations, a timeless reminder that pride can blind even the wisest. Children giggled as they mimicked the emperor, pretending to wear invisible clothes, their laughter echoing through the streets. The courtiers learned to speak honestly, no longer fearing the judgment of those above, and the palace halls became filled with sincerity. The emperor visited markets and farms, listening to the people, understanding their hardships, and appreciating the value of their work. He wore simple garments, comfortable and practical, yet he carried himself with a newfound dignity rooted in humility. Stories of the invisible clothes spread to distant kingdoms, reminding rulers everywhere to value wisdom over vanity. Artists painted scenes of the emperor's lesson, illustrating the folly of pride, the innocence of children, and the truth that shines through honesty. Teachers read the story to students, who listened wide-eyed, learning to question appearances and value courage and truth. Merchants and travelers retold the tale, warning one another not to be deceived by flattery or false appearances. Even in royal courts far away, advisors whispered of the emperor who had learned humility, praising his wisdom in accepting the truth. The emperor himself often reflected on that day, smiling quietly at the memory of the child's innocent words that changed everything. He realized that leadership required listening, honesty, and the courage to admit mistakes, even when pride tempted otherwise. The invisible clothes became a metaphor for the dangers of self-deception, shared in poems, songs, and plays across the land. Every new emperor was reminded of the story, often laughing but also remembering the serious lesson behind the laughter. The palace walls, once echoing with vanity and flattery, now carried warmth, laughter, and a spirit of truthfulness. Courtiers and servants alike found joy in honesty, no longer burdened by the fear of appearing foolish or inadequate. The emperor's wisdom inspired other leaders to be attentive, to listen to their people, and to value actions over appearances. The kingdom grew stronger, not by displays of wealth, but by a foundation of trust, understanding, and respect among its people. Celebrations were no longer grand shows of luxury, but joyful gatherings where stories, laughter, and learning were shared. The emperor sometimes walked the streets incognito, watching the citizens' faces, grateful for their honesty and bravery. He often thought back to the day the child spoke the truth, realizing that even the smallest voice can have the greatest impact. The palace library held books recounting the tale, with illustrations that captured both humor and the lessons of wisdom and humility. Artists, inspired by the story, painted portraits of the emperor in simple robes, a symbol of his transformation and sincere rule. Travelers returning home told the story at inns and marketplaces, ensuring the tale of honesty and courage spread far and wide. The emperor's advisors learned to speak freely, offering guidance rooted in truth rather than flattery, strengthening the kingdom's governance. Children playing in the palace gardens would pretend to wear invisible clothes, giggling as they practiced honesty and creativity in their games. The story became a cherished lesson across generations, reminding everyone that courage to speak the truth surpasses fear of judgment. Even the emperor himself recited the tale to young visitors, emphasizing that humility and learning from mistakes define a great leader. The kingdom thrived in harmony, guided by fairness, honesty, and the lessons learned from a single child's brave words. Folk songs celebrated the invisible clothes, not mocking, but honoring the insight gained and the courage to embrace truth. The story reminded everyone, from peasants to princes, that wisdom is earned through listening, humility, and courage to act rightly. Markets thrived, people laughed freely, and honesty became a treasured value, shaping the character of the entire kingdom. The emperor occasionally chuckled at the memory of flattery-filled halls, realizing how far he had come in understanding true leadership. Visitors to the palace saw the change instantly. A warm atmosphere replaced formal stiffness, and truth was celebrated over appearances. The tale became a cornerstone of education, a lesson repeated in classrooms to teach integrity, courage, and the value of speaking honestly. Artists painted murals of the emperor and the child, a timeless reminder that honesty and innocence can inspire great change. Travelers marveled at the harmony of the kingdom, noting that respect, humility, and truth guided both rulers and citizens alike. Courtiers practiced sincerity, learning that flattery can mislead, while honest counsel builds trust and enduring respect. The emperor's life became a testament to learning from mistakes, valuing honesty, and respecting voices of all ages. The kingdom celebrated festivals that honored wisdom, honesty, and courage, with children acting out the story of the invisible clothes. The emperor always attended these celebrations, smiling at the lessons learned and the joy of his people. Even distant lands heard of the emperor's transformation, inspiring leaders to value humility and wisdom over vanity. Stories of the invisible clothes became symbols in plays and songs, celebrated for courage, honesty, and the power of truth. Citizens carried the tale forward, teaching it to children, ensuring the lesson of humility and honesty endured across generations. The emperor's heart remained humble, and he ruled with fairness, empathy, and understanding, earning respect far beyond his kingdom. The palace, once filled with vanity, now resonated with laughter, sincerity, and the wisdom of living truthfully. Citizens noticed the change, rejoicing in the simplicity, honesty, and fairness that now guided the kingdom's every action. Teachers used the tale to illustrate how courage and honesty can overcome pride, inspiring students to speak and act with integrity. Children playing dress-up often remembered the emperor, pretending to wear invisible clothes while learning the value of truth. The emperor occasionally reflected quietly, grateful for the wisdom the tale brought, and for the child who spoke the simple truth. And so, the kingdom flourished, with leaders and citizens guided by honesty, humility, and the courage to embrace the truth. Festivals were no longer displays of wealth but celebrations of learning, community, and shared wisdom among the people. The emperor's personal journey became legendary, inspiring others to embrace humility and courage in their own lives. Citizens told stories of the emperor's honesty to travelers, spreading the tale far beyond the kingdom's borders. Courtiers who once feared speaking freely now provided honest advice, leading to better governance and trust in leadership. Children's laughter echoed through the palace, reminding everyone that innocence often holds the greatest wisdom. The emperor occasionally hosted storytelling evenings, where tales of bravery, honesty, and humility were shared with all. Artists sculpted statues of the emperor in humble robes, commemorating his journey from vanity to wisdom. The invisible clothes were illustrated in books as a symbol of truth triumphing over pride, read by children and adults alike. Even foreign dignitaries learned of the story, adopting similar lessons of humility and sincerity in their courts. The emperor often walked among his people, observing their daily lives, learning from their struggles and joys. Courtiers practiced open dialogue, fostering an environment where ideas and truths could flourish without fear. The tale of the invisible clothes became a central part of education, teaching generations the importance of courage and honesty. Artists created murals depicting the story, illustrating the emperor, the child, and the transformative power of truth. Marketplaces echoed with retellings of the tale, ensuring the lesson reached far and wide, inspiring integrity among citizens. The emperor's humility influenced neighboring kingdoms, encouraging rulers to listen, respect, and act wisely. Children played out the story in schools and streets, learning the importance of honesty and the courage to speak. The emperor occasionally reflected on his past, grateful for the child who had courageously spoken the truth. Courtiers now valued wisdom over appearances, learning that honesty strengthens bonds and ensures lasting respect. Travelers who visited the kingdom marveled at the harmony and sincerity, noting the story's profound impact on leadership. The story of the invisible clothes became a symbol for speaking truth, standing courageously, and embracing humility. Celebrations honored those who acted with honesty and bravery, reinforcing the values inspired by the tale. Teachers continued to read the story, emphasizing its lessons and ensuring children understood the power of truth. The emperor's actions showed that leadership grounded in humility brings prosperity, trust, and genuine respect. Courtiers learned to accept criticism gracefully, understanding that truth often guides growth and improvement. Artists painted scenes of citizens speaking honestly, showing that courage and integrity transform communities. Children continued to imitate the emperor and the child, learning to value honesty in their games and daily interactions. The kingdom's reputation for fairness and truthfulness spread across lands, inspiring reforms in distant courts. The emperor often reflected on the lesson, smiling at how a small voice can bring profound change to an entire realm. Books illustrated with the emperor's journey reminded citizens that true courage comes from acknowledging mistakes. Festivals celebrated honesty, humility, and learning, reinforcing values that shaped the kingdom for generations. Courtiers shared stories of their own mistakes, learning humility and encouraging open dialogue among peers. The emperor's wisdom inspired laws that promoted fairness, justice, and transparency across the kingdom. Children acted out the invisible clothes story in schools and theaters, celebrating the courage to speak honestly. The emperor's humble robes became a symbol of thoughtful leadership and sincere rule. Even the palace guards valued honesty, respecting the emperor's focus on integrity and truthfulness. The tale of the invisible clothes inspired poets and writers, emphasizing wisdom, humility, and courage in their works. Citizens carried the story in their hearts, ensuring future generations understood the power of truth and humility. Travelers from afar often sought the emperor's court to witness the kingdom's harmony and learn from his leadership. Children's games reflected the story's lessons, teaching them that honesty and courage create lasting change. The emperor's reflection on the child's words reminded him daily that even small acts of honesty hold immense power. Courtiers embraced open communication, valuing truth over flattery and improving governance throughout the kingdom. The story of invisible clothes became a staple of education, ensuring children learned courage and integrity early. Artists depicted the emperor humbly dressed, celebrating the journey from pride to wisdom. Travelers retold the tale in distant lands, inspiring rulers and citizens alike to value honesty over vanity. Children played imaginatively, enacting scenes of the emperor and the child, internalizing lessons of courage and truth. The emperor's personal growth became legendary, reminding all that humility and wisdom define true leadership. Courtiers learned to admit mistakes, promoting a culture of growth and sincerity within the palace walls. Festivals celebrated honesty, storytelling, and courage, bringing communities together in shared values. The kingdom thrived as honesty became a guiding principle, strengthening bonds and fostering trust among citizens. The emperor often reflected on the child's words, understanding that wisdom often comes from the simplest voices. Books illustrated with the emperor's journey reminded readers that true courage is speaking truth, even when difficult. Artists and writers celebrated the tale, ensuring the story of humility and honesty endured across generations. Citizens embraced honesty in daily life, knowing that integrity and courage form the foundation of a strong community. The emperor's rule became a model for others, showing that leadership rooted in humility brings lasting prosperity. Children performed plays of the invisible clothes story, learning that courage and honesty are more valuable than appearances. Courtiers learned the importance of sincerity, ensuring guidance and advice were honest and constructive. Travelers told tales of the emperor's wisdom, inspiring distant kingdoms to consider integrity and humility in leadership. The story became a symbol of courage, honesty, and the transformative power of truth in society. The emperor encouraged storytelling, fostering education, reflection, and moral development among his people. Children's laughter in the palace reminded everyone that innocence often brings wisdom the adults overlook. Artists sculpted statues of the emperor in simple robes, a tribute to the enduring lessons of humility and honesty. The invisible clothes story spread far and wide, becoming a classic tale of courage, truth, and humility. Courtiers valued honest dialogue, fostering trust and ensuring effective governance throughout the kingdom. The emperor walked among his people, witnessing the harmony created by honesty, humility, and mutual respect. Teachers read the tale to students, emphasizing lessons of integrity, courage, and the importance of speaking truth. The emperor's humility became a model for neighboring rulers, inspiring leadership grounded in sincerity and wisdom. Children continued to play scenes of the story, learning values of honesty, courage, and critical thinking. The palace, once filled with vanity, now resonated with sincerity, laughter, and the spirit of learning. Citizens cherished honesty in public and private life, building a kingdom founded on trust and fairness. The emperor remembered the child's simple words that changed everything, guiding his rule with wisdom and empathy. Artists painted murals depicting the emperor humbly dressed, symbolizing transformation through humility and courage. Travelers carried the story to distant lands, spreading lessons of integrity, courage, and truth. Children's games reflected the story's lessons, teaching honesty, bravery, and respect for truth. Courtiers embraced open communication, ensuring the kingdom's decisions were guided by wisdom and sincerity. Festivals honored truth, courage, and learning, celebrating the values inspired by the invisible clothes story. The kingdom thrived as honesty and humility became the foundation of governance and society. The emperor often reflected on the child's words, appreciating how a small voice could influence an entire realm. Books illustrated the emperor's journey, reminding readers of the power of honesty and the importance of learning from mistakes. Artists and storytellers ensured the tale endured, teaching generations the value of integrity and courage. Citizens lived by the lessons of honesty and courage, ensuring the kingdom remained just and prosperous. The emperor's rule became a model for leadership, demonstrating humility, empathy, and wisdom in practice. Children performed plays of the invisible clothes, internalizing lessons of courage, honesty, and critical thinking. Courtiers learned to value constructive criticism, fostering trust and effective leadership throughout the kingdom. Travelers shared tales of the emperor's wisdom, inspiring rulers and citizens in far-off lands. The story became a universal symbol of courage, honesty, and the transformative power of truth. The emperor encouraged storytelling, ensuring the lessons of humility, courage, and honesty reached all citizens. Children's laughter echoed through the palace, a reminder that innocence often holds the greatest wisdom. Artists sculpted statues of the emperor in simple robes, commemorating the enduring lessons of honesty and humility. The invisible clothes story spread worldwide, celebrated as a timeless tale of courage, humility, and integrity. And so, the kingdom prospered, guided by the enduring values of truth, honesty, and courage, inspiring generations to come.